Hi everyone, it's Aga from EurekaCrystalBeads.com and I'm here with a super fun beading tutorial for you today. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. In this video, we're going to be making this beautiful, intricate, crystal-filled pendant that I have here. This is what it looks like from the back. And the pattern itself, you will be surprised, is not that difficult. You just do some bezels, then you connect them, and you add some embellishments. But what's difficult about this one, why I ranked it as advanced, is because you have to be really careful around the bicones especially, because they're going to want to absolutely shred your thread. So in this one, don't pull too tight. I'm going to repeat it later on. Please don't get annoyed, but don't pull too tight. Be gentle. Rather go through the beads 2 or 3 times rather than pulling very tight. It happened to me. My thread got cut by the bicones when I was making the prototype, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So if you learn anything from this one, is to be careful around Austrian made bicones, because these are made in Austria. This is ELITE Eureka Crystal. They're very high quality, very shiny, very beautiful, but also very dangerous to your thread. Alright, let me just briefly tell you about all the supplies you're going to need to make this, and then let's start beading. Alright guys, so here is a prototype I made of this pendant. I added some fancy dangles, and this is just with the random colors that I had, just to see if the pattern works. So for the colorway that we're going to be doing today, you're going to need supplies from our originally March 2024 collection, Crystal Waters, that has all of our favorite products in all of our brand colors. So we have this pink, we have teal, and we have gold. So what if you don't have a collection, or you're late and you didn't manage to buy it? What supplies you're going to need? Let's start maybe with our Eureka Crystals. These are made in Austria and they are super extra shiny and super high quality. I mean, look at the shine, both of these crystals. And this is a chaton and this is just an oval stone. And both of them have color back, so they match very well together. They have beautiful shine. So I'm going to be using an 18mm oval stone in Laguna Delight and 4 8mm chatons in Lotus Pink Delight. When it comes to crystal bicones, these are also ELITE, and they were all included in the mix that we had in the collection. For one pendant, you're going to need 32 of them, and all of them are 4mm. Now for the beads, let's start with seed beads. You're going to need around 11 O's. These are Tohos. I'm not sure this will work with Miyuki's. I would wager that it probably would, but I'm going to be using Tohos. Here I have 11 O's. I have 8 O's. I have 8 O demi rounds, so they're like half the thickness of a regular Toho round. I also have 3mm bugles, and these are from the original collection. They are Miyuki's, and they are this matte rainbow color. But in the restocked collection, if you have a restocked collection, they are shiny, so I think they will look even nicer. For check beads, we're going to be using SuperDuos and MiniDuos, and they were both in the collection as well. Now, if you want to make a beaded chain, or put your pendant on any other type of chain or rope, you're going to find a clasp very useful. And here is the one that was in the collection, and it's this beautiful filigree box clasp. And if you don't know how to open it, you just need to push a little bit on those 2 bits, like that. This slides open, and then you have to take it apart because there's a little bar that you put it through. If you want to close it, just like this, and then you push it back in until it clicks. That's a beautiful clasp. Alright, that's it for the beads and the crystals. When it comes to other tools and supplies, you're going to need a needle. I'm going to be using a size 12. And I'll be using Fireline, 4-pound Fireline in the color Crystal. You're also going to need, of course, some scissors to cut off the excess thread. And that's basically it. Let's start beading. Okay, so here is the game plan for this one. First, we're going to bezel these 4 little chatons with SuperDuos and bugles and MiniDuos on the other side. Then we're going to add the back of our large crystal bezel, and then we're going to close it up in the front, and then all that's left to do is going to be adding those embellishments on the side that also strengthen the structure of the entire pendant. And we're going to add the final row of embellishments, adding the bail on the way, and then you can make yourself a chain. Alright, so what you start with is less than a wingspan of fireline. I'm going to use a separate piece of fireline for each of the small bezels. And you start with the following sequence. You want to add 4 times 2 SuperDuos 111-0. 2 SuperDuos 111-0, 2 SuperDuos 111-0, 2 SuperDuos 111-0. I'm gonna slide that down. And I'm gonna go straight through all of them, again in the same direction. And that will kind of create a little circle. At this point I can cut off the thread from the spool just enough to weave it in later. And now I'm going to actually pull it a little bit tighter so you can see this kind of a circle forms. And I'm going to tie 3 knots on that thread, just regular square knots to secure my thread. I'm going to pass through one of the next SuperDuos. And I'm going to step down the other hole of it. And now we're going to make a round. And wherever you end up above the 11-0, so where the gap is a little bit larger, we're going to add a 4mm bicone. I'm going to be using the teal ones just to keep the outside of this bezel kind of single color. And in the smaller spaces in between the 2 SuperDuos, I'm going to add 8 O's. So I'm picking up 1 8-0 and just adding it right over here. Now another bicone. 8-0, bicone, 8-0, and bicone. In the final bead in this round, which is an 8-0. To make it a little bit more sturdy, I'm going to go through all of those beads again. So I'm just making another round through all of those beads that I went through. Now don't pull your thread too tight because the bicones, this Austrian crystal is pretty sharp. So if you pull one too tight and one too hard, it's going to break the thread. It's going to just rip it. So remember to be careful, and if you're pulling right after passing through a bicone, remember to pull it in the same direction. Now you want to be coming out of one of the 8 O's. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna pick up a bugle, a MiniDuo, and a bugle, so these 3 beads, and we're just going to connect it to the next 8-0 in here. This is actually going to be the back, so if you pull, it's going to kind of go to the back and start creating our bezel shape. Bugle, MiniDuo, bugle, and I'm holding it from the back already through the next 8-0. Another bugle, MiniDuo, bugle. And that's what you get. And I'm going to go through all of these beads here again, just to reinforce it. Right, and you want to be coming out of that MiniDuo. I'm just going to step up the other hole like that. And I'm going to connect these second holes of the MiniDuos, but I'm not going to pull them together yet. So I just went through all of their holes, but before I pull them together, I'm gonna put in my chaton. Make sure that the front is facing the bicones, just like that. And then you pull it tight. You can push the chaton more towards the front. This will kind of make the front a little bit more convex. And now we're definitely going to have to go through all of the 4 MiniDuos one more time, or even 2 more times to make it a little bit more sturdy. And there's our bezel all done. It looks so nice. And once I'm finished, I'm going to tie a little knot and go through the beads a couple more times to weave in the tail of my thread. I'll weave in that tail thread as well. If you remember, we already have a knot over on this thread, so I don't have to add another knot. Right, and I'll repeat that 3 more times to have 4 bezels in total. And for the last one, I'm going to use much longer thread so that I can connect them with the same thread in the end. Like I said, I left more thread, so I used a full wingspan for this last bezel here. And now I'm here as always, and I'm actually going to step down the first hole of the MiniDuo, down through the bugle. Be careful with the bugles as well, because sometimes they do have sharp edges. And I'm gonna go through this 8/0 in here. And that's where you want to be coming out of, because we're going to use these 8/0s to connect these 4 elements around that stone. Alright, so let's say I'm going this way. So I'm kind of coming out of the 8/0 upwards. And what I'm going to add is 11/0, 4mm bicone 11/0. I'm going to use the gold one because it's going to be in the back, and it's going to be easier if I use a different color for what's in the back than what's later in the front. So this is what I do. I pick up these 3 beads, and I'm going to position this second bezel where I want it, and I'm going to go through a corresponding 8/0, also from the top, so from the outer kind of side of the 8/0, like that. And I'm going to connect these 2 8/0s again from that inner side, sort of, because that's where the oval stone is going to sit. So I'm going to connect them with a demi-round and a SuperDuo. So demi-round, SuperDuo, back through that 8/0. And that's how we're going to connect these elements around our stone. And you're going to add the demi-round on the side of the SuperDuo that's going to be on the narrower side of the oval. So one of the ends of the oval. I don't know how to say that. You can see how it's on this side of the oval, right? In any case, I'm going to go back through that 11/0 bicone 11/0 again, and back through all of the beads that I added, including the 8/0 that we originally went through. Now you want to be coming out of the bicone, and we're gonna start adding the back already. And what I'm gonna pick up now is an 8/0 and a MiniDuo. And I'm going to pass through, now looking from the back, this first hole sort of the MiniDuo in the side bezel. So this bezel is on the side of our pendant. Now I'm going to add another MiniDuo and another 8/0, a 4mm bicone, and an 11/0 to connect it to the next segment. So this is what I have: a MiniDuo, an 8/0, a bicone, and an 11/0. And I'm looking at, so this is what it's going to be again. This is the top. So I'm now going to the bottom segment. And I need to go through the corresponding 8/0 in this bottom segment here. So it's going to be this one. Like that. It's better if you just lay it down like this to imagine it a little bit better. And now I'm gonna go ahead with a SuperDuo and then a demi-round, because the demi-round is going to be on the side of the side bezel. Just like that. This is what I have. Now I can pick it up. I'm going to add an 11/0 because it's still missing to connect the bicone to this 8/0 in here. Through the bicone, I'm gonna go down and around in this kind of little circle in here. And I'm going to try to pull it tight, but very, very gently through that SuperDuo up front. Then the demi-round and the 8/0. The back is going to be a little bit loose at this point, but don't worry about that. Now again through the 11/0 and the bicone. I'm going to flip this over. Now this is the top and bottom of my pendant. This is how this is going to be, like that. So it's going to be different than here. And what I'm gonna do here is add 11-0, then MiniDuo, then 11-0. I'm gonna go through this first hole of the MiniDuo on the back of this top or bottom bezel. I'm going to add the same small sequence on the other side, and to connect this to our last segment, so this is my 11-0 MiniDuo 11-0 sequence. Now we're going to be connecting this one like this, and what I still need is a bicone and an 11-0 to go through the top, like the outer, from the outer side, through this 8-0 in this segment, this bezel here. That's what it's gonna look like. I'm going to flip this over, and I'll add, since this is the side bezel, small side bezel, I'm going to start with a demi round and then a regular SuperDuo, and I'm connecting this to the previous bezel from the bottom or from the inner side of our large bezel. Like that, it's all going to start coming together. Now I'm still missing the one 11-0 that should connect this 8-0 to the bicone, so I add my 11-0. I go through my bicone, and again I'm going to make the round one more time to make it a little bit more sturdy, so I go down the 8-0 and all of the beads in this little circle that we have between the 8-0s. I'm going to pull a little bit tighter. Up through that 8-0 again. Through the 11-0 and the bicone. And now we're set to go to our kind of side bit of the back, which is going to be 8-0 and MiniDuo through the MiniDuo in the back of this side bezel. Same on the other side, MiniDuo 8-0. Now we're gonna need a bicone and an 11-0 to connect this to this 8-0 in the next segment. Now SuperDuo and a demi round. We're starting with a SuperDuo because it's going to be sort of the top or bottom, so the longer side of the oval. And we're gonna go back up through that 8-0. Tighten it a little bit up. Now we're missing an 11-0 to connect the 8-0 for that's below here to the bicone. I'm gonna go through that round again to tighten it up a little bit. And now again I want to be coming out of the bicone so that I can add my final two sequences of 11-0 MiniDuo 11-0, connect them to that bottom MiniDuo on the back of this bezel. Same thing on the other side, connecting that to the bicone. Now it's all coming a little bit more together. Now I'm going to be going around again because these MiniDuos that we added are a little bit loose still. So I'm gonna go through this 8-0 MiniDuo, the MiniDuo from the back of the chaton, 8-0. So this is the shorter side of the oval, let's say. Now bicone in the 11-0s and MiniDuos on the other side here. Now once you go a full circle around this first back row, you want to be coming out of one of the mini duos. As you can see, I made like a full circle here and some, because I wanted to be coming out of one of these two mini duos on the kind of narrower side of the bezel. I stepped up through the other hole of the mini duo, and now I'm going to connect this to the next mini duo here, and if you connect them, look at how nicely they come together. And now it's basically going rounds to make the back of our bezel before we put in our oval stone. So I'm going to connect the mini duos in the narrow side to the mini duo in the wider side with 1/8. So I'm adding an 8/0 between mini duos above the bicones from the previous row. Just like that. It's supposed to be loose at this point. We're going to tighten it up in a minute when we put in the oval. Now on the kind of wide side of my bezel, I'm going to add an 11/0, 8/0, 11/0, and that's how I connect the two mini duos on this side of the back of the bezel. Now a single 8/0 again, and I go through both of these mini duos on the narrow side. Again, I'm not pulling very tight yet. Another single 8/0, 11/0, 8/0, 11/0, and a final single 8/0 in this row. And before I pull it tightly together, I'm going to put in my stone. It's going to shape our pendant a little bit at this point. Make sure that all the SuperDuos on the other side are facing up with their free holes. We're going to further secure it in here as well, but right now we want to close up the back of this. So I'm gonna go through all of these beads again. So all of the seed beads and all of the mini duos, and I'm going to get them tighter and tighter as I go. Now I'm going to finish this up by just adding one more 11/0 in between these two 8/0s in here. Like that, and I'm also going to go directly from this 8/0 through the sequence of seed beads on the side, so I'm skipping the mini duos entirely. In here as well, I'm connecting the seed beads. And I'll add one 11/0 in between these 8/0s. It might be a little tricky to navigate with your needle among all of those beads, so just take your time. That's the most important thing, taking your time. Right now you want to go to the front to connect these SuperDuos and further secure the stone. So what I'll do is I'll go through one of the mini duos for one last time. And I'll turn right back through the other hole. Then through the 11/0 that's connecting it to the bicone. I just want to get to the front, so I'm going through the bicone. Now if there's anything that's difficult in this pattern, it's definitely going through all of these beads and not going through any other beads with your needle, but always remember you can turn back like in here. I'm going underneath those bugles here because there's no other way I can go through the bicone. Now I'm going down through the 11/0 that's connecting this bicone to the 8/0 in the bezel, and now I'm already in the front. And now I'm exiting this 8/0 in here in this bezel, and I could go through the demi-round and the SuperDuo and then turn back, but then some of my thread will be visible here on the side, and I can very easily avoid it by just going through the SuperDuo in the bezel. Now through the bicone. If it's too hard and if you feel like you're pushing it, then just go back through the demi-round and SuperDuo and go back through the SuperDuo. So I'm coming out of this bicone here, and I'm just gonna go around connecting bicones to the SuperDuos in here. And whenever you're on the narrow side, the shorter side of the oval, you're gonna add an 11-0, and on the wider side, the longer side, you're going to add an 8-0. So a single 11-0 connecting to the SuperDuo, a single 8-0 connecting to the bicone, and wherever your needle just doesn't want to cooperate because the structure is kind of stiff at this point, you can use chain nose pliers to grab that needle and kind of reroute it so that the needle goes where you want it to go. Another 8-0 connecting to the SuperDuo, 11-0 connecting to the bicone, another 11-0 connecting to the SuperDuo, 8-0 connecting to the bicone, another 8-0, and my final 11-0 connecting to that bicone in here. Now I'm going to try and go through all of that row again, maybe one bead at a time, because it needs to be reinforced. It's not going to be that easy to go through all of these beads again, because there's little to no flexibility in that beadwork now. Here I brought some large sewing needle. It also helps rerouting that needle in here, just like that. Alright, we have the base all done. All of the stones are bezeled. Now for this last row, be extra careful because those bicones are gonna wanna cut your thread, and they will if you pull too tight. So this is not tight. If you look at that, it's not very tight. I just went through it 3 times and tied a knot as well, just to make sure that it holds together. And don't pull too tight as you go around, and go one bead at a time to make sure that those bicones don't ruin your work. Alright, I am now coming out of this 11-0 in here, and now I'm gonna go through this SuperDuo here, at least I'm gonna try, and the 8-0. And I'm gonna go through the bicone as well. Now I'm gonna try and wiggle my way through that SuperDuo and the 8-0 that's connecting it to the next SuperDuo. And what I want to do now, because it will be super hard to go through this SuperDuo here, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the bugle that's connected to that 8-0 on the back. It's gonna be much easier. I'll pass through that MiniDuo here. As you can see, I had to go under the next bugle for my needle to be able to go through there. So I go back and go down the next bugle, and now it's going to be a lot easier because we're just going to be going through the edge of our work. Okay, so let's say that this is going to be the bottom of the work. Okay, so now let's add 2 11-0s. Then 3 8-0s, and we're gonna go around the bicone here. So I'm going through the bicone again. 2 11-0s through the next 8-0, and we are going to be going through the same route again. So it's all going to make sense then. 2 11-0s again, down through this side bicone. And now I'm going to go for a demi-round pink bicone, demi-round, up the bicone in the next chaton bezel. And in here you don't have to pull tight at all. Now 2 11-0s, 2 more, 3 8-0s, and around the bicone again. 2 11-0s through the next 8-0. Now this is going to be the top of my pendant, so I'm going to put a bail in here. I could make it right now, but I'm going to make it with a new piece of thread in a minute. So I'll just add 2 first beads, which are going to be 8 O's, and I'm gonna go around that bicone. And then you go on around until you've made a circle. Alright, I've made a full circle now. I'm adding my 2 last new 11 O's here. Now I'm gonna go through the next 2 11 O's that were already there. And I'm gonna go through the first of the 3 8 O's in this bottom picot. And I'm gonna skip the middle one and go right through the last of the 3 and through the next 2 11 O's. Now I am going to go through the 8 O in the previous row, and at this point you can make a little picot right over here by adding 1 bead in between the 2 11 O's in here. And this picot is actually going to be quite useful for us. But first, I'm gonna go through that bicone and the demi-round, just like before. But now I'm skipping the pink bicone, and instead I'm adding 3 11 O's on top of it and going straight through the next demi-round, creating a sort of a picot above that bicone in here. I'm gonna go up again, up this bicone, be very gentle, not to move it around too much so that it doesn't cut the thread that's inside it. I'll add an 11 O in here and go through that 8 O. Now through the 2 next 11 O's in the first of the 3 8 O's. Skipping the middle one, going through the third 8 O and the 2 11 O's right after it. Through the 8 O. Now adding the 11 O to the picot. Through the bicone. First of the demis. Now adding 3 11 O's through the second demi round, creating a picot on top of the pink bicone, going up through the teal bicone, adding the picot element. And now as I reach part where I'm going to later add the bail, I'm going to skip that middle 8 O anyway. Alright, I've made a full circle now, but I'm running out of thread. So I'm just going to tie a knot here, go through some more beads and cut it off, and I'm going to start a new thread by tying a knot and going through some beads in the edge and starting. I'm gonna start at the top to add the bail at the end, and in this way I won't have to like go back to add the bail. I'll just add the bail as I finish the edge. Alright, so I'll just finish this thread. Alright, so I'll tie a knot right over here, and I'll actually do it. I'll leave a tail to weave in later, but for now I'll just tie some regular knots. I'm ready to go on. Alright, now once you reach this picot element in here, above the pink bicone that we added before, it's time for the final embellishments, which are going to be more pink bicones. And you pass right through the middle bead in the 3 that you added above the pink bicone earlier, just like that. They're going to fit right in. The picots are going to lean in a little bit. Now I'm going to strengthen the edge a little bit more by just going through everything once more when adding my final bicones along the edge. Another top of the picot here, so I'll add one bicone on each side. Alright, I've made a circle and went back to where I want to add my bail. And I'm just going to go simple. I'm just going to add it with gold beads. And now I added these two first 8 O's, and I'm going to do several rows of 11 O's. So I pick up 2. It's going to be just a regular herringbone. I mean almost, because as you go through the second of the 8 O's, now you have to pass through the bicone underneath, back up through the 8 O and the 11 O. Another pair of 11 O's, and I'm just going to go down this last 11 O pair and up the last 2 pairs of 11 O's. Now I'm going to add like maybe 6 8 O pairs. Alright, I ended up adding 8 pairs of 8 O's and 2 more pairs of 11 O's. And when making a beaded veil, you just need to consider what you're going to put through it. And in my case, it's this clasp, which is going to go through it after I add it on a beaded chain, and it's going to go through that veil. Now we're going to close it up. So I go behind my work and I go through the same pair of 8 O's on top here to attach this end of the veil. And I'm gonna go through that bicone in the front again, very carefully, of course. I'm going up and connecting the other 8 O to the 11 O in my veil. Going down again. And I'm just going to go through it once more. I'm going to tie a knot, weave in my tail, and that's gonna be it for this pendant. And there's our pendant. Isn't it so beautiful, so intricate, and so shiny with all the crystals that are in it? I think the SuperDuos are also doing a great job at creating bezels. And well, I just simply love these colors, not because they're just my company colors, but I just generally love the combination of this fuchsia pink and this teal and the gold. Doesn't it look wonderful as well? So you can put this pendant on just a chain, just a cord, or you can make a beaded chain yourself, like this one. If you would like to make this particular one and you would like to learn how to make this, we're going to have a short tutorial that will be only available for our VIPs, which is everyone that signed up for our emails, basically. So if you're not, go check out the link in the description to sign up for our emails and look for the VIP section at the bottom of most of our emails, where you will find a link to the special category and special playlist on YouTube with all the videos that are only available to our VIP club members. Meanwhile, all of these materials, as I said, are from our Crystal Waters collection and are also available from EurekaCrystalBeads.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked the tutorial. See you in the next video. Bye!